In today's video, guys, I will be taking you through what I believe to be the 3 biggest levers that you can possibly pull in your business to double your business from $500K a year to over $1 million per year in wholesaling real estate. By using this exact same system, in January, we had one client pass the $200,000 per month. We had multiple people join the $100,000 per month club, and many others double their business and do tons and tons of deals. And so I'm gonna take you through the 3 key things that you need to do in your business, all focused on the 80-20 principle, so you guys aren't gonna have to spend tons of time going and figuring out what exactly to do. It's very easy things to implement in your businesses that will make tons more revenue. So I'm here to help you guys focus on the most high leverage tasks you possibly can in your business. So all I ask is that you watch this video to its entirety, take some notes, and at least just make some money for me. But without further ado, enjoy the video, and I will see you guys on the other side.
All right, guys, so I want to take you through some stats from last month for Level Up, as well as the levers that most of the people in our community are pulling. They're making the biggest impacts in their business. So this is going to be educational, as well as just to highlight a couple of the wins that we did have in our group. So basically, high level, we had one student hit the 200K per month club. We had 2 people added to the $100,000 per month club, 3 students who 2x their business, 5 students who closed their first ever MLS strategy deal. So basically, I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that our students are doing to have really crazy success, and why I believe that we are the best at scaling wholesale companies. So without further ado, I'll get right into it. So the first thing you have to do, and this is like everyone who comes to us, like if you don't have this, like you just keep burning money. You just need to have KPIs dialed in your business, because if you don't, it's literally completely pointless. Let me actually just pull up this document for you guys. So here's like some of the advanced KPI stuff. Look, this is super simple, but if you don't have it, then your business is going to be extremely complicated, and it's going to feel like you're driving completely out of control with no clarity at all of what's going on. So if you want KPIs in your business, you have to have them. So basically what we do is all of our people are tracking the manufacturing line, which is essentially just a funnel. So let me teach you this. It's essentially just a funnel. This is the most important thing that you need to do if you are trying to make more money in your business and make great decisions. Because if you want to make more money, you have to just make great decisions and be able to solve the real problem. So the reason why I say KPIs are like the foundational piece that solve every issue is because what happens is a lot of times on the calls, people come to me and they're like, Chandler, like my issue is, it's X, Y, and Z, it's whatever, and I'm not really sure how to fix it. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's verify this is the right problem. So I'm like, what's your numbers? How many leads do you get? How many offers? How many contracts? How many deals? What's your deal size? All this kind of stuff. And usually, probably I'd say 8 to 9 out of 10 times, so 80 to 90% of the time, what happens is the gut feeling is incorrect. And what the numbers say is completely different. And so once we actually fix the right problem, we stop being stuck at a certain ceiling. And so the way that we know that is because we have a funnel, and this is inputs over here on this side of the funnel. And then we have outputs, and outputs is money, because that's what everyone wants, right? Everyone wants money and freedom and time. And so the output of money gives you the ability to hire a team, to scale your company with systems, so that you have time, freedom to do whatever you want. You don't have to work all day just to make a couple dollars and hustle around. So anyways, let's figure out how to get from input to output. And so the most important thing you're going to see here is we break this down very simply. So we have leads. Then it moves to, we call it net leads, but I'll just skip that for right now because it's not the most important thing for this example. After we have appointments, we have offers. Once we get an offer, we have contracts that we sign. And then contracts spit out money because that's a deal at that point. This becomes a deal. Whoops. I promise that's a deal. It's a D, I swear. So basically, you can see how the funnel changes over time. It's like it does with everything else, is it gets smaller at the bottom of the funnel. So what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to understand what is our normal conversion from lead to appointment? What is our normal conversion from appointment to offer? What is our normal conversion from offer to a contract? And then what's our normal conversion from contract to deal? And then how much is that worth? So what's our average deal size? And this is where leverage is created. This is the first place where leverage is created in your business, is by having cash. Because we're all bootstrapping our businesses. We're not going to get VC funding. We're not going to take out loans on our wholesale business. It just doesn't make any sense. So the leverage we have is what we call deal size. And so if you're doing a deal that is on average 10K, well, do the math. To hit 100K, you have to do 10 deals, right? You have to do 10 deals to hit 100K. If you do deal size at 20K, then it takes you 5 deals. So you have to work half as hard if your deal size is just a little bit bigger. And what happens if you work half as hard and have half the team and spend half the money on marketing, but your deal sizes are twice as big? Your profits go up. Our margins go up. Our cash flow goes up. We have way more money to invest in marketing. We have way more money to invest in a team, which is going to create a flywheel, which is basically infinite improvement of where we can get to our goal faster, whether that be 100K per month, 200K per month, 500K per month, whatever it is. And also like have time freedom, whatever you want, right? You can get to your goal way faster if you have money, because money solves all problems in business, at least. And do the math even further. If you do $30,000 per deal, takes you just 3.3 deals to hit 100K. Our average deal size is 35K. So it takes us 3 deals. Your 3 deals, if you're doing 10K, is obviously 30K. Here it's 60K. Here it's 90K. And in this scenario, it's 70, it's 105K. So if it costs you $5,000 for a deal, then here you make 25. Here you make 55. Here you make 85. Here you make 100. So that's why this is the most important leverage in your business, because if you can spend $15,000 on marketing to close 3 deals, then you will do $105,000 if you get your deal size up to 35K, which means you're not making 100,000. Sorry, that was bad math. You're making 90K, which I'm sure everyone would be okay with 90K. And then here, if we spend 15K on marketing, making 75, still really great, right? And then here in this scenario, you'll be making 45, which is still pretty solid. And then in this scenario, you'd be making 15K, which basically means that you're not making any money at all because you have to pay a team or you're grinding away way too hard. So that's why the biggest leverage piece is to get to this deal size, 20K. And then if the best people we have, the highest performers, the people who are hitting 150, 200K per month, they're up here, this 30, 35K per month mark. So that's why that's leverage. That's why that's the most important piece that you need to know, is you need to know your KPIs so you can understand how you can add leverage to your business throughout the process. So another thing too, I'll add real fast before we get too lost in deal size, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit later and like how we can actually increase that. But we need to make sure that in this funnel, we have baselines for each conversion, right? So we establish baselines, and what you'll see is that for lead to appointment, it's different for every lead channel. So for example, like the general rule of thumb is like inbound leads, you should be converting them from lead to appointment around 50 to 70% generally. If it's PPL, it's going to be closer to 30% just because of all the refunds, right? But if it's outbound, it's going to be closer to 10 to 25%, 25% being cold call, 10% being more like SMS. And then you should be giving about 85% of all of your appointments offers, 80 to 85%. So if you're not in that range, then you have room for improvement. And then from offer to contract, for inbound leads, you should be closing those around 20 to 30%. The best people are closing them closer to 35% if they're in person. So just in person, it's going to be closer to 25 to 35%. Virtual for inbound leads, it's going to be closer to 20 to 30%. Now, if you're closing outbound leads, then what you'll notice is that your close rate will be a little bit lower, but also your appointments are cheaper, and everything else is just cheaper all around. So for like SMS and cold call, you should be closing these in anywhere between 10 and 20%. 20% being like really, really good, 10% being pretty good, right? If you're above or below that, then basically there's room for opportunity here. If you're in person, just go ahead and add like 5% to any of these numbers. This is all virtual numbers. So this is how we know what's going on, because a lot of times we'll see clients come in and they'll have like their lead to appointment rate, their conversion rate will be like, 5%. And it's like, okay, well, there's a simple couple processes that you just need to install in your business. So you actually contact these leads, or you need to train your team up so that they can talk to these leads better and convert them into appointments. Because that's just the bottom line. If you go from 5% of your leads converting to an appointment and you go to 10% of your leads converting to appointment, then you do a 2x. Like that's a double. That's literally you going from whatever you're at, 20, 30K to 50, 40, 50, $60,000 pretty much immediately, right? So that's why this is so powerful. And why is one of the first things you need to do in your business is to establish KPIs so you can find out where you're actually at compared to where you should be. And then you can implement something that's very easy to fix it. So number 2, sales process. This is critical. If you do not have a sales process in your business, then you will never be able to replace yourself out of the sales role, which would mean you're forever going to be burned out making cold calls, and just maybe not making your follow-up calls or whatever it is. But no one wants to actually do that. Like, that's not why we got in business. We don't want to make sales calls. Maybe that's your strong suit, right? But you need to in order to make more money than you are now, or to have more freedom, you have to take that skill set in sales and become a great sales manager. If you want to be great at this business, you have to become a great sales manager and have a great sales team underneath you, which basically, let's talk about it. So, sales process. If I'm going to install that in my business, it's very simple. I need to have something that is proven to follow. So, for example, I'm going to go here and show you our flowchart of how our sales process works. So you can see over here on the left, we have basically 3 red dots, which are all the transition points. So the starting of the sales process is when the new lead answers the phone. The middle of it is when the seller answers the offer call. So basically, we put them on an appointment. And then the last part is where the contract gets signed. So that's the 3 transition points of the actual process itself. 2 important things is we have what's called a diagnosis call, which is the first part of the process, which is where we qualify the seller to find out, is this person a good fit or not to work with us, and do they need an offer? And we want these calls to be less than 4 minutes if the lead's not qualified. We want to be between 10 and 15 minutes if the lead is qualified. The other thing we have is we have an offer call as well. That's the second call. So this might be an in-person appointment, but basically it's just like where you give the offer to the seller. So again, this is all it is. The average of all of our offer calls needs to be more than 30 minutes. Most sellers we lock up are multiple 60-minute conversations. So we are having long conversations with people on the phone. So one of the big things we actually pulled, and it was a big lever in our close rate, and we increased our close rate by about 50% by doing this, was just making the KPI of taking all of our average sales calls and making them 30 minutes or longer for our offer calls. And we saw basically an immediate jump, because what that means is if you force yourself to have an average of 30 minutes conversation, instead of disqualifying a seller in 5 minutes because they're not motivated, you force yourself to actually be able to get better at digging into the pain. And that's the outcome we saw, is our team leveled up their skill set on being able to connect with sellers at a much deeper level. And that's why that's such a critical metric for us. So let's get into it. What does the sales process actually look like? So first thing we do is we're going to start the diagnosis call. We take them through an intro on the script. Then we're going to set expectations for how the process works. And look, these have a very similar talk track for each part. And I can show you the script. But once we set expectations, we're going to roll into the property condition. We're going to ask them the basic same 10, 15 questions about their property. So we know when this gets to the acquisition manager, we have all the same information every single time. And it's very easy to underwrite the property virtually. So we don't make inaccurate offers as often. The timeline, next thing is like, when do you want to get this process started, kind of thing. So we're figuring out, are they trying to move quick, slow, whatever. We're going to confirm the roadblocks. Is there any other decision makers, any people with veto power, whatever it might be. We're going to go into motivation, find out, is there actually motivation here? We don't want to go into pain. We're not trying to like extract their pain on this call. We just need to be like, is there pain there? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, there's pain, then that's great. Then we know that they're going to be qualified. The next thing is going to be price. So basically, maybe they don't have tons of pain, but if they have a discounted price, it's great. Otherwise, we just want to try to get that out of them. It's not like the most important thing in the whole process, but it does sometimes give you low hanging fruit. And then we're going to ask ourselves the question, is this person motivated, yes or no? So if they are not, then we're just going to put them to an automated follow-up sequence that always nurtures these people. And if they are motivated, then we're going to basically use it if we're a fit expectations. And we're going to set the appointment. We're going to create the Calendly invite, and then we're going to put them in an automated reminder sequence so they show up to the actual call. Because that appointment set to offer made, if you're virtual, you understand that a lot of people don't actually show up. And there's really a few reasons for that. It's one, maybe they don't know about it. Maybe they forgot about it. It's core when we want to make sure that's completely removed off the table, which is what this does. The other thing is they don't actually believe that you're credible and can solve their problem. So if you don't make someone really feel understood on this first call, then the likelihood of them actually showing up is significantly lower. So you need to build a lot of trust, build a lot of credibility that we're a legit company and we can actually solve their problem. So you spend a lot of time in the understanding phase, and then make sure that the seller feels understood. And then once we've done that and we've built that credibility that, hey, we're legit and we can definitely solve your problem because we're a professional home buying business, then they're going to be much more likely to show up. Also, if they don't show up, we have some process for that, basically like how we call them, how we text them, that kind of stuff. But in general, if you make someone feel like they can definitely get their problem solved by you, then they will definitely have a much higher likelihood of showing up. So Anyways, seller answers the offer call. They open the door. They meet you at the house, whatever it is. This is when the actual appointment process starts, right? So basically on this call, we're going to go through the intro, which is the same thing every time. We're going to set the stage with the same expectations for every seller every time. So we can basically pre-frame certain objections and how this call is going to roll. We're going to address any roadblocks that might be sitting in the way. So like, are all the decision makers on the call, that kind of stuff. Obviously there's a little bit more, nuance to make sure that you solve all the problems ahead of time, and you're not going to be like at the end of the call, like, and they give you some objection that you can't overcome because you should have just done that in the beginning of the call and addressed it then. And then we're going to state the motivation. This is where we're going to spend a big bulk of all of our time. So like all of this stuff right here, we're talking like 3 minutes, 5 minutes max. This right here, we want to be here for a long time. Like we want to be here for at least like 20, 30 minutes minimum before we really get going into anything too deep. Once we're there, we're going to set up the offer, we're going to give the price, and this is when the negotiation starts. And so I think it's really important that you have a negotiation process, because what happens is almost every time you give a seller an offer, they say no. Of course, sometimes they say yes, and like it's like, oh, I should have gone lower, but you'll just take the deal and run with it, right? But if they say no, which is 99% of the time, then we need to have a basic reply process for how we're going to handle these negotiations so that we can consistently do it at a high level, right? So we just build a process that gets us like most of the way there. And then we do advanced sales training on top of that, which gets us all the way there and allows us to increase our close rates drastically. But the basic frame that we want to follow is we have a price too low reply. So the basic thing that we're going to say as soon as they say, oh no, that's way too low, or whatever their exact reply is. And we're going to say the same thing generally over time. And it's all about the tone. Second thing is we're going to have 2 more price rebuttals until we feel like we're not making any more progress. There's no more conversation about, us coming up in price, them coming down, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to see if they accept it. If they accept us coming up in price, then great. You always have to have a reason for when you come up in price. So there's reasons attached to each one, each time we come up. So it's the same thing over and over again. And then we're going to create what we call, if they basically don't come up to our increases in price, then we do what we call the MLS pitch. And basically this is where we are going to be trying to do innovation, and list the property on their behalf and all that kind of stuff. So that's this. If they accept it, great. We go through the signing process. If no, we just move to an automated follow-up process where we convert 40% of all of our sellers into deals. Over here, sending, because honestly, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you guys know it, but the follow-up's where the money's made. Like, you just have to have a perfect pipeline in order to really maximize in this business. You're going to lock up a bunch of people in like the first or second call, but that follow-up process is what's going to nurture people over time and going to really convert people a lot. So anyways, if they do accept it, we just send over a DocuSign. We start the contract call, because I'm sure you guys have sent out DocuSigns and they just never come back. So we obviously do that some, right? We are going to send them out preemptively, but for the most part, if someone says yes, we're going to get it signed, guaranteed. So we're going to prep the document, do the small talk phase so we don't get any awkward silences, let them have, decision regrets and all that kind of stuff. Then we're going to post close right before sending them, segue into the reviewing, and then we're going to review the first 2 sections of the agreement and go through each part of it, brush over it, and then we have obviously the next steps. So they have clear expectations for what happens after the contract signed. So when we hand it off to Dispo has a very clean transaction. There's no like expectations that need to be reset. Everything's super simple, and the seller is able to basically move on through our process seamlessly. And so that's the sales process. So it's super, super simple, but it needs to be followed perfectly, because if you don't have a process that's followed, there's no way you're going to train anyone to do something repeatable. If you train someone who has no process, it's different every phone call. You're never going to master it because you never mastered the dance. Alex Ramosi says it perfectly. It's like, you should win the sales call because you've done this dance thousands of times and you know exactly what they're going to say, exactly when they're going to say it, exactly how they're going to say it, exactly why. And so you're going to know exactly how to overcome those objections with ease. So it should be the same song and dance every time. And if it's not, then you're doing it the wrong way. So let's keep rolling. Deal size. How do we increase our deal size? So there's only 3 ways that we can increase our deal size, in my opinion. And that's to either buy deals for less, which basically means that we are going to be offering sellers less. We're going to need to create an underwriting process, and then we're going to just need to do more sales trainings. This is like my least favorite, least leveraged way to increase deal size. Now, it is something that you need to do. You need to have an underwriting process. So you are always making the same spreads on every deal. Because if you are lapsing on that, then you're just going to lapse in your deal size and you're going to become weak. But if you have a process to follow, then you're going to be strong in your negotiations and be able to stand to what your numbers are. And that's why we need, and that goes hand in hand with the offer given process. So we have 3 different MAOs. We have a first offer max, we have a cash offer max, and then we have an MLS offer max. And that's the 3 numbers we have. And each time we go up, we're able to leverage our different offers and the pros and the cons and what the seller needs and et cetera, et cetera. And then that comes into advanced sales training. So once we have the process dialed, your team's able to do this over and over and over again on repeat. They have the basics down, which will get them to become performing, like you'll be profitable. But then when you do advanced sales training with them, that's when you really, really are going to make strides and tons of money in your business. So it's a long-term play. It's like a 6-12 month play, but you need to do it 3 times a week minimum in order to see huge benefits in your business. And you need to do it intentionally, right? You got to know what people's strengths and weaknesses are. So sell deals for more. This is the other thing you can do. So the first thing is buy deals for less. Second thing is sell deals for more. So basically there's 3 ways that we can do this. 1, we can generate appointments in areas with better economics. So what does that mean? That sounds over my head even. So what does that mean? We are playing a supply demand game. This is what real estate is. Real estate is all about supply and demand. So I'm gonna draw this out for you guys. Basically, you guys all have seen this chart in economics or whatever it is. I think it looks something like this. But we have a supply demand curve. So I think this is probably supply. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. And then this is demand. So, and then this is the equilibrium. This is where everything's going to land. So every market has its own supply and demand curve. And the way that we read that is in form of a couple metrics. So basically, just to keep it simple, I'm trying to find out where the best supply demand economics are in my markets. And I'm trying to make sure I only get appointments in those areas. So I'll show you how to find that out. So again, we're looking for a good supply demand curve. The way that I find this is I look at a few metrics: days on market, months of supply. So days on market is your demand, months of supply is your supply. So if I am looking for a high demand market, my days on market needs to be less than 15. I'm looking for a low supply market, then I want my months of supply to be less than 2. So this creates a very attractive market where you're going to sell deals quickly with low risk, meaning people will pay more, and high demand based on supply, which means you can sell worse properties for higher prices. So if I'm doing wholesales, if I'm doing MLS strategy, if I'm selling to flippers, I want these economics, because if I'm selling to flippers, hear me out, is the flipper has less risk because they know they're going to not hold on to this property forever. Their holding time is going to be short. As soon as they list it, it's going to fly. And they're going to be able to fly it for the most money possible because there's just no other option. They're putting the best product on the market, which means they're going to be able to sell it for the most money for the premium of what they think, and they're going to be able to move it the fastest. This is why you have to be in a good market, because if there's less risk, that means a flipper is willing to make less money because there's less risk, which means it's also harder to get a deal. And so when they do get a deal, you can demand a higher price. That's off market. If you're selling on market, MLS strategy, wholesales, flips, whatever, we're typically selling subprime inventory, as is homes or a little bit below. That's typically what we're selling. And we're selling that on MLS. So if there's lots of supply, there's lots of options. If there's lots of options of way better product, because we have a bad product on the market relative to everything else, our property is kind of trash, then what do you think is going to happen? We're going to sell it for less money, and it's going to take longer to sell it. So we're going to go down in profit margins. But if there's low supply, there's nothing else that's better than what we have, or there's nothing else, period, then you'll have buyers come in who are willing to pay a premium for a crappy property because they're like, I just got to get a property. I want somewhere to live. I want to live in a spot. I don't care if it needs a little bit of work. I'm cool with it. And that's what happens. That's why these 2 numbers are the most critical. Things sell quick, and there's not many other options. And if you have these 2 things, then you're going to be looking at a very, very a good outcome for yourself. The best outcome on Dispo. So that's number 2. That's how we sell deals for more. You can add the MLS strategy if you're not already doing it, basically to do novations, MLS strategy, however you guys know it. And then you also add a wholesale strategy or a light fix and flip strategy that's going to allow you to take these 30K deals and turn them into 60, 70, 80K deals. And doing this in the spring, which right now is a pivotal moment, it's February 7th. If you start to take down wholesales that look really good, look like 60K deals today, then there'll be 80K deals in the summer. And I promise you, this is what's going to happen. the way the current market goes is like this. Summer prices go up, days on market go down, months of supply go down, means economics are better. And I'm willing to sell properties. I want to sell properties as many as I can on wholesales or on MLS in June and July. Those are the two hottest markets in most areas that I look at. Look at your local MLS, find out the data. So you know, August is when things start slowing down. So if you do this strategy, either one of these strategies on the retail markets, just know your prices are going to start to correct, and be aware for that. Know what month you're selling your properties and take account for it. Be accountable for the actions you take, right? Flipping houses is risky. And if you try to make too small spreads, or if you're just dumb about it, then like you will lose money. But if you're smart about it and you make big spreads, like we don't do a deal for less than 60K if we're going to buy it, then you're going to be fine. Because worst case scenario, the market drops, you make 40. It's not that big of a deal. You're still upset. You're still like, dang, like we didn't make 60. But if it goes up, then you make 80 and you're like really stoked. And that's like how you change your business, is by getting these massive rips. That's going to increase your cash flow substantially. So the other thing, third thing, is flipping higher priced homes. If you're not flipping higher priced homes, like let's just say your average house you're buying and selling, your wholesaling is like 100K, then it's going to be hard to make much more than 10K. Like general rule of thumb is 10%. So if you're in a market where the median home price is 10%, usually a median is like what it is typically. So for us in Atlanta, it's 350. Deal size is 35K. So that's kind of where you want to be, is I like 10%. Some people are a little bit more, some people are a little bit less. I have friends everywhere, and 10% seems to be about like where most people land. 8 to 12, it would be the range I'd give. 10% being like a healthy target. So if your median home price is 100K, then 10K is all you're kind of capped at. Really kind of sucks, which means you're basically playing a volume game, which I have a friend who played a volume game, did like 100 deals a month. And I kind of like at this price point, and he just hated his life. So I would not recommend that to anyone. Now, if you're at 200K, 200K is like kind of a standard market. You should be doing about 20K. If you basically put all these different extra strategies together. Now, if you want to keep mainly wholesaling and just taking the spread in the middle, you're going to probably be closer to like, you're going to be a little bit lower than this, right? You're going to be probably closer to 15 to 17, just because that's just the reality of this. But if you add flips in there, you can probably get 20 to 25K just based on those markets. Now, it's going to be tough to get much higher than 25K in this price point. Now, once you can get up to 300K, you can look at this, and it's going to be 30K is like the goal. And so basically, this is where you start to really like help your business out. If you're a virtual wholesaler, you can literally go into any market you want. I almost like feel dumb. There's this really hot topic of be like, oh, stay in your own market, go deep, do this, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know. I think it's just kind of like, it's like an interesting term. And I think, and we made the decision to go into a new market about a little over a year ago into Dallas, Texas, after making the decision to try to go deeper. But what happened is our returns just diminished, and we couldn't break past 10 deals a month in one market. And then like when we opened up a bunch of new markets, we were just able to increase our deal size drastically by just picking the best place to do deals. So like Warren Buffett says, it's not about how hard you row the boat. It's about which boat you're rowing. And the way I see the boat is just the market you're in. And like you can have the best processes, you can have the best team. But if you have a horrible boat, you're still going to go slow. So that's why I want to pick the best markets I can and then have a great boat. And if I have a great boat in a great market, that's going to create huge profits. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. And so if you want to open up a new market because your market sucks and you're virtual, then it's super simple. You just got to find perfect economics across the country and pick that place. You're also looking for something that's kind of similar to your current market it is now. So for example, here's exactly what I look at. Let me get this out of the way. I'm going to look at days on market because I want to know supply demand. I want to know months of supply. And, like I said, we'll say 15 days of market, 2 months of supply. I also want to look at total sales volume monthly. I want to see more than 200. Means I can actually do sustainable deals there. And I also want to see a median home price. So median, I want to see that more than 350. If I see these numbers, then I like this as a potential market. Then what I'm going to go from there is I'm going to go from like, okay, let's see what kind of how tangible is it to actually move into this market. So I'm looking for, we're good in suburban areas. So is this area homogenous? Basically, is the area similar all around? Is it kind of easy to comp, or is it super street by street? I don't want to go personally somewhere street by street if I'm virtual. Just wouldn't be very good. So I like suburbs. That's why Plano, Texas is sick. Plano's great. Love it there. because every house is like exactly the same. You know, you're going to buy it for 250, you'll sell it for 300. It's just like as is. It's just great. So super simple. Other things that are really good is you want to make sure that it's going to be a similar type of person that you're used to dealing with. So like your team's going to be able to adapt to the actual demographics. This is not as big of a play as long as you have a very versatile team. And then I also want to put down connections. Do I know people here? If I know someone in a market, it's going to be a lot easier to get some intel from local insight than it is if I don't know someone there. Also, like if I have I need a title company or I need boots on the ground, I have like connections that make this a much more desirable market to open. And so these are the three main things I'm looking at outside of the actual statistics to make a decision. And then from there, usually what will happen is you'll be deciding between multiple markets that you like. Just choose one and then stick with it for at least 3 months. It took us 90 days to get our first deal in Texas. And then from there, we were absolutely crushing. So our 25 grand turned into 600K. We invested 25K and it turned to 600. So that was over 6 months. And it took us 90 days to get our first deal. It took us 45 offers, which is really bad. And once we figured it out, for first deal. So that's that. Take a screenshot if you want it. I'm going on with my day right here. So basically, if you want to do higher price point markets, basically move your spend around your current market to find better economics, open up a new market, whatever you need to do. Those are the two of the main levers that you have in your business. It's going to be sales process, deal size. Last thing is going to be performance of your team. So obviously this document is used for our team. You can see there's actually a ton of people using it right now, which is pretty great because it means all these people are hiring in our community. But here's the high level process. We're going to make a job ad. We're going to filter our candidates. We're going to do a discovery call. We're going to run a role play call, run a core interview, and then we're going to make the job offer. So generally speaking, I'm going to give you some general tips here. It needs to be a hell yes. If not, it's a hell no. So if you interview someone and it's a hell yes, then great. You should probably consider hiring them. But if it's not a hell yes, then you should not hire them. Almost guaranteed. Your gut, like it's scientifically proven that your brain and your gut actually are connected. There's like neural pathways in your gut. So like you need to be in tune with that. And if you go against it, every time I've done it, it's been bad. Comparison is the best way to tell how good a candidate is. That's simple. If you have 5 people to choose from, you're going to choose someone better than if you had 1 person to choose from. Hold a high standard of success for past successes. It's important. And the reason for this is, how many people do you know who've been successful in the past that have been successful in the future? Most people. Not everyone, but most. So how many people do you know who have never been successful in the past? Let's just say they're 25, 30 years old, never been successful in anything really. And I deem success is like something that only like 1% of people can do, 10% of people can do. If they've never been successful in the past, then like, what do you think the likelihood is that they're going to be a 1% person today? Probably pretty low. So that's why I want to make sure I hold a high standard for that. I'm going to question their experiences, not only about like the experience itself, but how did that experience impact them, and like what did they learn, and what specific examples can they give you from that? It's going to tell us awareness, and also like the likelihood of, can they replicate this again? Because if they can tell us how this impacted them and changed their life, then it's going to be very clear that, hey, they learned a lot from this. They can probably replicate it again, and they know why they had success. If they don't know why they had success, it's probably going to be kind of a 50-50 crapshoot as if they can figure it out again. So that's really important to me. The other thing is, can they give specifics on what they did, what their outcome was in that actual scenario? And if they can give specifics, then you know that they actually are really dialed in and sharp. If they didn't give you specifics, then it's probably just like a fugazi type of answer, and they may not have been that involved actually in the actual outcome of that experience. It's like, for example, think of like a football team who won state championship. Someone can give you very specific examples of how they did it if they were the coach, or if like the head coach, or if they were the quarterback. But if they were just a bench player who maybe played on special teams every once in a while, but never touched the ball, their examples are going to be way less specific, and they were not an impact player in that experience. The last thing is looking for impact skills, something from this person that's going to make them special and be able to make an impact in your business. And the way that I want to look at this is, how does a team if you have multiple people in your team, what are the skill sets of everyone that are on the team, so we can all have different skill sets and different complementary skills and weaknesses that will contribute to us going faster in one direction. But if you're by yourself and it's the first person you're hiring, is basically think about what's your strengths and what's your weaknesses, and then find your opposite. typically is what you need to do when you're hiring your first person. Maybe, if you're hiring a salesperson, maybe they won't be your fully opposite, but you want them to have strengths that you admire because they're maybe a little bit something that you're a little bit weaker at. So you want to be thinking about this as you're building teams, like how do I build cohesion amongst the group? Then you're going to make the job ad. So basically, biggest thing you can do is have a good job title, because if you have the right job title and you post it out here, you're going to get qualified candidates. Then use a title that actually like get you the right candidate. I was talking to these gentlemen yesterday actually on my call, and they were telling me that like when they're trying to hire a commission only sales rep, and I asked them what the job title was, or basically they said they were hiring a commission only sales rep, and everyone they told it was commission only was like, no, there's no way. And I asked them what their job title was, and they're like, something about a manager, relationships manager or something like that. And then I was like, what kind of person's applying for this role? And he said, a lot of managers. It's like, okay, do you think managers want salaries or commission? And they're like, oh, they want salaries. Okay, cool. Let's change the job title up to get the right avatar in our funnel. And so that was one thing. And the other thing was that as soon as the person came in, they're telling them it's a commission only job. If you were in that situation and you're looking for a job to make a lot of money, and you saw that someone just texted you, hey, this is commission only, do you think a large percentage of people are going to entertain and be like, yeah, let me hop on a call, I love commission only? Not a large percent, right? You might catch some people, but the problem is like they don't have a reason to even like your job in the first place. So I told them you need to start filtering out your candidates, call the ones with resumes that you love with these criteria: 2+ years of outbound experience on phones. This is for lead managers specifically, but you want to make sure basically that they have experience in the job doing the things that are required, basically before you call them. So these are the basic things. You can look at that, pause it, take a screenshot if you want, and tell them to do a discovery call. So take them through a discovery call where you do 15 minutes and you just find out, do they stack on your non-negotiables? So like, for example, here's the non-negotiables. Are they interested in this job, or they're just looking for another one? Okay, we want to figure that out. Are our salary expectations aligned? Do they want to make the same amount of money as we want to pay someone? Yes, cool. Do they have access to a computer, because there's an internet, headset, all that kind of stuff? Do they have a quiet workplace for home setup if they're virtual? And are you okay making 100+ phone calls a day and being on the phones all day like that? Are they okay with that? Is that what they're used to doing? And if they pass these non-negotiables, then that's great. Then we want to put them on to the next interview. But basically here, what you're going to do is when you get to salary expectations, you're going to have the conversation around like, hey, how much are you looking to make in this role? Like what kind of like salary ranges are you looking for? And the most people are going to ask you, like, what does the compensation look like? And that's when you tell them it's mostly commission or it's commission only, and you work back from there. So if you start and say, hey, it's commission only, but based on our KPIs, you're expected to make this amount of money for 1, 2, 3 reason, and then leave it there, see what they say. They might be like, oh, heck no. Or they might be like, yeah, I mean, that's like not going to work for me, or that would work for me. Then you can kind of figure out and negotiate back to where you can get a really low base payment and a little bit less commission. So maybe instead of paying 10% commission only, you're going to pay like 6 or 7 or 8% commission only, and maybe pay them like $2,000 of a base payment. That's pretty digestible for most people. So this is what you're looking to do, is try to figure out, hey, do I really like this person? And if I really like them, I'd be willing to pay them a little bit more, just because I know there's a high likelihood of them having success. So make sure you get the right person and then negotiate the pay after that, is what I'm basically saying. Fourth thing is we want to do the role play call. So this is basically where we're going to give them the script and say, hey, let's rip the role play, and I'm going to coach you up on it. And then you're going to do it again. You want to see how good they take feedback, and do they have a fundamentals of sales? If they have those 2 things, that's what you're looking for. Also, do they sound good on the phones? That's another super key one. Then we're going to do a core interview. This is basically where I dive into their greatest accomplishments, into what really motivates them, and like how they've kind of become who they are. I want to know about this person's past, and like the way that their experience have shaped them, and like how they see the world. Because if they see the world the right way, in my opinion, and they have the right experiences and they have the right beliefs, then we're going to be in a really good situation to have a lot of success together. And so that's what I'm really looking for here. So if you want to see some of the questions and the way the flow works, pause it, screenshot, and go on. And then you're going to give them a job offer, which is super simple. Just write out an offer letter, look one up online and copy it. I mean, here's the example of like what we use. Basically, just like going through a bunch of different things. Like there's a base payment, commissions, pay schedule, hours, role type, and then like a basic invitation for all this kind of stuff of like, hey, this is why we like you, basically. And then some information to like learn about them. So like if it's ever their birthday, we can like put that in the calendar. We can make sure that it's known, what's their favorite things that they want to do. blah, blah, blah. So we just want to get a good feel for all that kind of stuff. It's a super simple system that we install in people's businesses that are allowing our students to hit 200K, 100K per month, 2xing, 3xing their businesses. I mean, we've done this for hundreds of businesses, and so far it's been extremely, extremely simple to implement in everyone's businesses. And like here, I'll show you actually the flow that we do. All right, so this is the system right here. This is the most simple, clean system that I can create that we need to do in our business to make sure that in our businesses that we're consulting, to make sure that they're actually implementing the right things to have the highest leverage to make sure that it increases their profit. So for example, the first thing we have to do, phase one, is going to be fix the math. We have to make sure the math works. And this is where I talked about getting KPIs dialed in and talked about the funnel. So we have to make sure that this phase is dialed in. So if you don't have your KPIs tracked, start checking them right now so that you can go and compare them to baseline. I gave you the baseline in the earlier parts of the video, and you can create a plan to do that yourself. The second thing is we're going to build the foundation. So phase two is building that foundation so that we actually have something to scale off of and it's repeatable. So this is going to be where we get our processes dialed in and make sure the key things of the business are important. So for example, what we're going to be doing is making sure your time is used in the highest, best allocated way possible. Second thing you have to do is you make sure that your follow-ups automated and your CRM set up the right way. So you're focused on the 80-20 throughout your day. Then we need a sales process, because the next thing to scale is going to be able to get a lot of the sales things off your plate, because that's where I see most people who are stuck between 20 and 50K, their time is spent. They do some admin stuff, like, you can outsource that to a TC company for a couple $100 or like $300-400 per transaction, or maybe a little bit more depending on which one you use. But we can basically get all that kind of stuff automated. And the biggest thing is going to be able to replace ourselves from sales, because we have to become a high level sales manager in order to crush this business. And then, like I said, we want to increase our deal size so that we have leverage. So we need to get a new dispo strategy in place and add one that's going to give us a lot more leverage and a lot more cash in the bank. So if we do these things, this will set us up to have a really good opportunity to invest more in the business and people and in marketing, so that we are building a repeatable business that will scale without us. So phase three is the plan for success. So in this phase, we have basically generated enough cash to invest in the growth of the business, in people, in more marketing and inbound leads, all this kind of stuff, through basically making our business more efficient. So we need to do a planning phase of how we're going to spend these new resources. Or even if you have resources to begin with, we basically need to get this plan down so we know exactly what we can implement in our business and build an execution system around it. Because a plan can be as good as you want, but for corporations, 2 out of 3 corporate strategies fail because of the implementation, not because the strategy is bad. It's just because it wasn't followed through correctly, which is why we need to have a solid planning system that allows us to know exactly what needs to be done day by day, week by week, over the next 90 days to get closer to our annual goal. And then we need to install business reviews that basically continue to build on that momentum, daily stand-ups that allow us to build on the daily momentum, and then weekly team meetings to build culture to make sure our team's all moving in the right direction. And so you need to make sure that you're meeting with your team every day. You have a weekly business review where you go over the numbers and the issues in the business daily, and you make sure all your processes are documented, because as we start to scale and assemble a team in phase 4, we need to make sure the business is fully repeatable and fully delegatable. And so in phase 4, this is where we're really going to start to blast off and start to delegate the accountability chart. So accountability chart, you can see here, I'll pull it up. Basically, it starts with CEO, COO at the top, and we have an EA in this box. And then we go down over here to like marketing director, and you can see all the different responsibilities of every different marketing channel that there is and that you can do, and all the different data management things. So you can basically delegate out these responsibilities to everyone. What you're going to start, if you're just starting out this business, or if you're doing like, 20K a month or 50K a month, is likely your name is in like every single box down here, because you're responsible for everything happening in the business. You create the majority of the revenue and you do the majority of the tasks. So our job in this assemble the team phase is to remove our names from all the boxes and just to only be doing the highest leverage tasks that are possible, which is mainly going to be sitting in these 2 seats of the acquisitions director and the lead manager director. And then you might run a little bit of title and dispo, depending on if you have a dispo person or not. So basically your job is to become the manager of the business and be on top. So you're going to be running all of these jobs, which when you're doing 100K a month, it's super simple. And that's like the sweet spot of the business, to where it's super stable and reliable. and you don't have too many people underneath you to manage. Like you're managing like 5 or 6 people max, who are all doing the job and they're all high performers because that's who you hired. And so we got to make sure that we get the accountability chart right because the team structure is super critical. And also, it gives this is a huge visual to see like, oh shoot, I do literally everything. So when I did that the first time, it was like super eye opening. I was like, wow, I cannot believe that me and Gino literally do every task in the entire business, and we have a team. So that's not a good place to be. So the next thing after that is you need to install a talent acquisition system, which basically is what I went through in that hiring process. You just have a super simple hiring process that's repeatable over and over again, and it works to hire A players. Because you can have a good process, but you also need to make sure that you're actually taking them through a way that's going to seem super professional and credible. So this is a sales process itself. So when you're talking to new potential hires or potential people you're going to bring onto your team, you have to be treating them as if this is they're a candidate. Like Layla Hermosi said on her birthday, it was like the best birthday gift that she had. I think it was last year. And she said, oh, I hired this candidate. And she's like, that's a $10 million acquisition is what she like said, I think is basically what she said. And if you think about that, a $10 million acquisition is the biggest deal that anyone's ever done. So when I hire an employee, usually if I hire someone really good, like for example, I poached a guy from an M&A company who's the number one sales guy, and that is a 7-figure play. He makes more than 7 figures a year for the company. Like without hiring that one person, like that's closing a 7-figure deal. So just think about that when you're thinking about hiring people. It's like, this is a sales process. You are bringing on people who will make you tons of money by just being able to get really talented people on the boat. Then we need an onboarding process so you actually follow through with the promises you basically sold the new candidate, the prospect, the employee. And then we just are going to repeat this process, these 2 things right here, until the accountability chart is fully delegated and you're just on top of the business, accountable for the things happening. Once you've done all these things, you will be at 100K per month business. And if you're not, it's because one of these things back in different phases was not executed perfectly. So when you have issues in the business, even if you're, let's just say, doing 150 a month, and maybe you have a couple bad months that are like 100K, well, usually something here is messed up. So maybe the math is wrong. You got to go in and make the business efficient. Sometimes the foundation is wrong. Maybe the people aren't following the process perfectly, right? And that's when we got to go back and fix the foundation. We built it. Now we got to fix it. Phase 3 is planning for success. Maybe you don't even have a plan. Maybe you didn't replan the next quarter and you're just kind of wandering aimlessly through the situation, or your plan was bad. Those are the next learning phases and why you might start failing once you get to 100K per month and start to drop down a little bit. And then assembling the team, maybe you didn't hire the best people possible. Maybe they're not performing. Maybe the onboarding was bad and there's gaps in their knowledge. Whatever it might be, there's always going to be something going on in this funnel throughout the entire scaling process and the process of building a consistent and reliable 100K per month business. So basically, if you want me to send you this document, then all you got to do down below this video is react on the Discord post with a rocket or whatever I comment on the post. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. It's a 49-minute video where I deep dove how you can honestly go through these 3 biggest levers on your team, so you stop burning money and can get closer to the freedom that you want, and ultimately just either buy your time back or scale your business to 100K per month and break through that ceiling. So here's some of the stats. Hope this was helpful, and see you guys in the next video.